Most people who are looking for an inexpensive pedestal device use something called flute. I don't know if you've ever heard of flute. They're out of Chicago. They make wonderful little cardboard pedestals with melamine or formica tops. The pedestals individually cost somewhere between $27 and $60 depending on the colorations and the size and everything that you get. They're really inexpensive, and if you wanted to, you could walk away from them if you had to. If you were going to do an expensive show and you didn't want to ship them back, you could. But you can use them 4 or 5 times without showing any wear. And then you can always order additional new covers for them, or you can cover them in fabric or wallpaper and do other treatments to them to make the booth look new every time. And your flute pedestals will last quite a while. They're very lightweight, and they ship very easily. Yes?
And in this area, are there any publications or research information available to us as far as finding out what is industry standard in display and how do we find out that information?
Yeah. There is something called the Exhibit Design and Producers Association, the EDPA. Their address is in the back, and I'm sure that they can provide you with plenty of information. The book that I brought gives you lots of resources. There is a flame retardant spray available out of New York, and you can also use a formula that you spray on yourself that includes baking soda and, anybody know the formula?
Boric acid, I think.
Boric acid and baking soda? Okay. What part, how many parts to what?
It's in an old Gilton's letter. We'll look at
Okay. It's in my new book coming out, so, yeah.
I just came back from the Washington Convention show, and that formula is not allowed, and the fire marshal does come through the show with a lighter, and he will go to the...
Yeah, they do. They test materials, and they will come by and test the drapery fabric.
There's a product available in Michigan, I found
Yeah.
it. If anybody wants to approach me later, I don't have it with me. I simply bought it by the gallon. It was $45.
Yeah.
I sprayed it on. It looks wonderful.
There are a lot of trade show producers also that keep a couple bottles of that stuff. I know we do in the office, just in case somebody gets caught. And it's not like the fire marshal can really test every booth. They don't have the time nor the effort or the patience to test every booth. So they go by and they pick a few and they test them. You can purchase this fabric, which is the fire retardant fabric also. It's pretty available. And most cities have an exhibit design company where you could go and pick up this kind of fabric, and there's also that wonderful nappy fabric that people Velcro things onto for booths. Yes?
There's also a product put out by Sunbrella. The company that makes a lot of awnings.
Mm-hmm.
They have a fire resistant.
Where's Sunbrella located?
I don't know.
Okay.
But Canvas Companies is who you would get it through. Someone that does boat covers and things like that.
Okay.
And it's very heavy. Very, very nice fabric.
There's
So
a
it's not
display
beautiful.
designer right outside of Kalamazoo, too, on 94.
If you do have fabric or anything that is certified as flame-proof, please bring a certificate. The manufacturer will provide you with a certificate. Then your fire marshal doesn't have to light it.
I hope he brings an extinguisher as he goes around to light it.
Fire marshals are not one of my favorite people. Yes?
A lot of people are attempting their trade shows for the first time, or the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
What would you consider the average cost for display versus the normal retail display we have? And we all know the horrors of retail display costs for outdoor shows. Now we're looking at a totally different cat.
Well, I think for the first time you can probably get away with a 10 by 10 booth if you rent your drapery or you use the drapery provided and you're only doing shelving or pedestals. You should be able to get away with under $500 even if you bought it at a local display company. That's my opinion. So the $500 budget's probably a reasonable budget for the display itself. Lighting, that's with rented lighting probably. If you go for your own lighting, you're going to have to probably buy, well, you can do one of two things. You can buy inexpensive lighting that is the kind of thing that you'd use in the garage, the clamp-on lights that you would use in the garage, which are not great. I see you squinching up your nose, yeah. Most people who are doing trade shows and planning on doing a few are using track lighting.
What do you consider the most effective track lighting?
Well, any of the brands are just fine. Make sure that you are using, if you are showing pottery or a lot of things, P38s, light bulbs. Those look kind of like your car headlights. They're a faceted bulb, and they give you great color balanced light, and they let you pin spot. Use some P38s.
What company makes P38?
GE, Westinghouse, they all make it. They all make a P38.
Is that a halogen?
It is a halogen. It's also known as a watt miser. If you find a watt miser with a faceted front on it, it's a heavy lamp. You're going to look, it looks like you're buying a car headlamp. And it's 90 watts, but it gives you 150 watts of light.
Are you allocated X amount of wattage per
You are allocated, generally with most trade shows, you can buy 500 watts minimum up to whatever you need. Yes?
At the trade shows, do they use a lot of the grid paneling, the steel panels?
Yes, the steel panels, you mean like for art fairs, steel panels? Those are,
The aluminum one, the grid paneling, the 2-foot sections.
like standard D&D?
yeah, those are fine.
Yeah.
Those are fine. Any kind of store display store display materials are just fine.
No, I was just thinking when you do these shows with the unions, you want in there with all big booths of that stuff, they say that stuff's too heavy.
Right, right. The union's jurisdiction ends when you start to put out your merchandise. They do not put out your merchandise for you. That is your responsibility, and that's not something they want to do. Yeah, yeah.
But a carpenter would not be used to put up this grid paneling because there's actually...
No, it's just folded.
Yeah.
Yeah, this stuff folds and just, hooks in. Right. So, yes, you would not be using a union for that. Right.
So that is something really important to keep in mind as you're designing your booth, is just how much labor you might potentially pay for.
That's right. And you can see that if someone really put a gun to your head and said, Abstract is my jurisdiction, and you had a full booth of Abstracta, and someone was putting it together who really didn't have a lot of experience with Abstracta, you might be there all night long, $80 an hour. So just think about it. I mean, generally the show promoter can give you some guidance.